What's up? Welcome back to the YouTube. I'm excited to have you here. This video makes me a bit nervous. We're going to be talking about my story. I wanted to introduce myself to you guys. You've had a chance to see some of the challenges that I'm taking on, but I wanted to show you the why behind the miles. So when I was growing up, I grew up with 4 older brothers, and as a kid, I wanted nothing more than to keep up with them. And that meant at all costs. I had one brother who was in particular very good at football. He played D1 at Utah State. And I watched him hit hard every single game, and so I wanted nothing more than to hit hard as well. And so when I would play football, I played with this reckless abandonment where I would put my body on the line to be able to show that I could do it. And when I did that, I ended my junior year of football with over 10 concussions, bloody noses, randomly passing out, and a lot of issues. That affected me very heavily because I have a naturally obsessive personality. And so football was all I did. I would wake up every morning at 5 a.m., catch 100 passes, work out, go to school, work out again, then go to bed. And that was what I did. And it was really hard from one day to the next to have that taken from me. And a lot of that was because I was unwilling to feel the shame and the guilt of slowing down and missing tackles just to learn how to tackle correctly. And because of that, it caused a lot of issues. And it was the same thing with dirt biking. I had another brother who was really good at dirt biking. And he dirt biked a ton more than I did. And when I was younger, one story in particular, I watched him on his 250 go around this berm. He hits this 65-foot tabletop, flying over it, lands on the other side, and I saw the whole thing happen right in front of me, and I said, me too. I'm going to hit that jump. If he hits a 65-foot tabletop, I'm going to hit a 65-foot tabletop. So I get on a little KX65 two-stroke, by the way. So for those of you who know what a two-stroke is, it has a power band. And so I get on, I'm pounding my chest, I'm getting excited, I'm hyping myself up, thinking that this is going to be the coolest thing in the world. I go around the berm, and I'm going up the face of the jump, and I hit the power band. I'm flying through the air. I felt like I was Superman, like I had everything cut out for me. And till I realized I really was flying through the air, I looked down, and my bike's about 5 feet below me. And I'm just flying through the air solo. I ended up crashing at the bottom of the jump. I rolled down to the bottom. I get up. And instead of looking at all the scratches and bruises on my body, I hurried and got up on my bike, rode over to my brothers just to tell them what I had just done. Because their acceptance was more important to me than my own safety. And that mentality bled into a lot of what I did as I grew up because I felt like I was always waiting for someone or something to come and save me, give me the validation that I was wanting, to hear, to understand, and to help honestly solve my problems. And that bred this insecurity in myself that I couldn't do it on my own and that I wasn't enough. And so I felt very incapable. My self-worth got low, and I didn't really know where I fit in this world. And that was a really hard place for me to be. And that bled into when I started Neuromastery. I started Neuromastery. I felt like I had read the books. I had the knowledge. I did everything that I could do. I had my degree in psychology, and I said, okay, this is it. This is my time. I don't know why this wouldn't work out. And I realized it was a lot harder than I ever expected. And I got scared. And all those self-doubts started to creep in. Why am I not enough? Why does nothing work out for me? Right? I was 4th string in corner. I never started in football. I wasn't that great at dirt biking. I wasn't that great at anything that I did. So why would this be any different? And I started to have all this self-doubt start creeping up. And so I did what I do best, and I started reaching out, hoping that someone or something could come and save me. And I reached out to one prominent coach here in Utah, and I get him on the phone. He starts talking to me. He asked me about 3 questions and then talked for the rest of the call. And pretty much by the end of the call, he told me, Brock, I think you should quit what you're doing. Come back when you've done something meaningful. And that hurt. All those self-doubts then became validated. I guess I'm not enough. I guess I can't do this. And I felt stuck. But I also felt like there was a part of me that I hadn't figured out quite yet. Because I still felt that anxiety. I still felt the shame, the guilt. I said, why? Why not me? And so a week later, I felt like that was fine. I reached out to him. I got his advice. And I still was feeling all those emotions. Next week comes up. And it turns out he wrote an entire blog about our conversation. And it basically said there's a whole bunch of fake gurus out there thinking that they can solve the world's problems when they have a wife at home who's telling them, why are you 45 pounds overweight in a group that doesn't work? And that one hit deep. And I was so sick of myself at that moment. I was so sick of things not working out for me. I was so sick of not ever being able to figure out what was wrong. And there was a lot of me that I was unwilling to face. And so what I did is in that moment, I went and got on a bike and I started pedaling. It was a stationary bike, and I turned on my headphones and I had these shaman drums, and I said to myself, I'm going to stay on this bike as long as I need to until I figure out the answer to this problem, and I don't care how long it takes. So I start pedaling, and in the beginning of the call, or the bike, I started blaming the coach. I said, well, he's not very good at what he does. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's got people in his group. Heck, he's overweight. I don't know, why he thinks he can say this to me, right? It was all blame. And although that did make sense and it was logical, I still felt the anxiety. I still felt the shame. And so I continued to pedal on the bike. And I said, I got to go deeper. I got to go deeper. And so I went deeper. And all of a sudden, I get in, and I'm about an hour in. And so 25 miles at the time. I'm sweating. I'm tired. Because I didn't bike it this time either, by the way. And I got these shaman drums still pumping, just boom, 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 boom. And I had a breakthrough, and it just was, Brock, why are you not enough? Why can't you figure this out? And that still didn't feel like it was all self-blame. It was all self-pity. Maybe I'm just not that guy. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. I said, that can't be it. I still feel anxious. So I stayed on the bike, and I started pedaling even longer. Shaman drums were just going hard in my ears. And now I'm on the bike about 2 hours, 50 miles deep. And all of a sudden I had this breakthrough moment where it felt like the world disappeared. And I just had this slight whisper in my ear that said, Brock, what's the lesson you are unwilling to learn right now? And in that moment, I immediately realized that I wasn't capable, that I wasn't doing what it took. And that really, in this life, choice is an illusion. It takes what it takes. And I wasn't doing what it took. And I was entitled to feeling like this world owed me something just because I showed up and did some work. And I was wrong. And I had to have that moment of breakthrough that set a baseline for my life. So immediately after that moment, called my wife, who was 7 months pregnant, Kelsey, and I said, hey, hon, I want to run a 100-mile ultramarathon. And at this point, I had not done too many challenges. I basically had ran a couple marathons. I walked basically through the Grand Canyon, a 48-miler, but we mostly walked the whole way. And it was hard. But it wasn't anything up to what I was about to take on. And Kelsey said, well, if it's what you want to do, I support you. And I had 3 months to prepare. And that was scary. Because like I said, I'd never run more than really a marathon at that point. And here my wife is 7 months pregnant, which means by the time that our son would be born, he would only be about 3 weeks old, driving down to Moab to go do this race. And she bought in, and she did what it took. And that was a moment that really broke through, that helped build me who I am. One of the biggest challenges that I had to face early on was feeling lonely in a crowded room. It wasn't that I wasn't surrounded by people, but I often just felt like I didn't fit. Like I was the misfit of the group. And I felt like I had to force and to pull people into me to where they would want to hang out with me, to where they would want to be around me. And I felt like I constantly had to prove myself on why I was enough, why I was good enough, and how I could help people. And that was really tough. And that was a challenge that I didn't know what to do with for the longest time. Because in high school, what I did is I would pay for people to, I felt like if I could just plan a big enough event, a big enough party, if I could just get enough cool people over to my house, then they would love me. And the thing is they did come, but I never felt more whole. I never felt like I was enough. And so I continued to do that, but I became a black hole. I was a taker from those around me. Because I would take the compliments, I would take the validation, I would take the understanding that they were giving me, and it was all surface level, so I would just eat it up and spit it out and need more. And that was a very unhealthy place for me to be. And so that was one of the biggest challenges, and one of the things that I had to face when I lost football was I didn't get that validation. My junior year, all my friends went and continued to play football, and like I said, that was my entire day. And from one day to the next, that was gone. And I remember one night in particular, I was laying on the floor, feeling bad for myself. I had a sad song on and everything. And I was just laying on my floor not knowing what to do. And I remember in that moment that I really wanted to get to know myself. I had this yearning desire. I said, I just want to get to know Brock. And so what I did is I sat down on my desk and I wrote down 300 things of everything that I liked about this world. I said, I like apples. I like these type of people. I like these friends. I like these situations. And I wrote down everything that I could possibly think of. And I said, okay, I want to spend 80% of my time in these areas of where I feel comfortable, where I feel like I belong, where I feel like me. And then what I did, but I said, I also want to become strong. I hate that I felt weak. Because when I lost football, I felt weak. I felt like I didn't have a place and that I didn't get a say or a choice. And so what I did is I wrote down another list, a lot longer of a list, of things that I didn't like. And on that list, I decided that I was going to pick 2 of those things every single week and try to deliberately expose myself to them. Like at the time, I really hated sarcastic people. I hated sarcasm because I felt like it was just an opportunity for people to be rude and not ever have to own it. And I often felt like people were mean to me. Like it wasn't an uncommon experience for me to hear, like, Brock, it's okay that we make fun of you because we know you can take it. And so that was something that I wanted to learn to grow strong in. And as I checked off things off that list, I grew a ton of confidence. I stacked a ton of evidence that I knew who I was and that I was who I said I was. And I wanted that evidence to be so irrefutable that there was no way to deny me inside myself because I was whole just as I was. And that was one of the ways that I really started to overcome my own self-doubt and build some self-worth and confidence in myself. The path from where I started to where I am now it's a hard road. It's definitely a hard road. I remember when I got my concussions, so my discs got slipped a little bit to where it was out of place, and we tried to go through the whole doctor system, but mostly we just got more medication, and they said, Brock, this is going to solve your problem, but it only did for a short amount of time, and so I thought there had to be a better way. So I went to this massage therapist, and she was a very earthy type person who felt like she could talk to your body. And I remember one day I said, hey, talk to my body. I want you to ask it what I'm trying to learn on this earth. And she said something very profound as she talked to my body. She said, Brock, you're here to overcome pain. And that hit me deep because I do feel like a lot of that has been my calling. And it's not that pain is necessarily a bad thing. It's what's shaped and it's what's molded me. But where I first started was I tried to avoid it at all costs. I tried to avoid any trigger, anything that could make me uncomfortable, anything that was hard or difficult. I wanted somebody else or something to take it away from me. But where I am now is I want to face those things head on, and I want to be able to embrace everything this world has to offer, because what I've realized is that anger is an amazing emotion. It's one of the best motivators. That sadness, that pain, those are what help mold and grow me into who I am today. So when I'm out there running and I do these challenges from an Ironman to a 100-miler to a High Rocks, I don't necessarily care if I'm the best or I'm going to win or even what place I take. I just want to see what I'm capable of, and I want to get to that place to where I can find who I am from the inside out. And one thing that I've found is on these races, specifically 100-milers, is there's this moment of truth where it's just you and the mountain doesn't care how much you've trained, how much you care about this, how much support you have back home, or how intentional you are. There's just you and a trail. And it doesn't matter what you say to yourself. It just matters if you're ready to take on the challenge of the day. And for me, I love that moment because it's one of the only moments where I can quiet the noise of the world and focus on one thing: growing, building, and figuring out who I am and what I'm made of. And that moment is peace to me, when what I do, what I think, and what I say are all the same. And I've only been able to find that in a few places. It's probably why I keep going back for more. But from where I started to where I am now, that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned along the way. My mission in particular is I want to help people regain the energy to engage with life, because I believe that energy is the greatest connector that gives us the ability to give to our kids, to our family, to ourselves, and to the world. And so when we have energy, you're going to come home and be able to play with your kids. And you're not going to be too tired to where you're irritable, angry, grumpy. Like, our brain has a horrible way of telling us that it's tired. And so what it does is it usually comes off in irritability and anger, grumpiness, stress, anxiety, depression, whatever you want to call it. And so a lot of times if we can find the energy to engage with life, then all of a sudden it opens doors that wasn't there. And so that's my mission with the group, is I want to help people regain the energy to engage with life. But I do that by building leaders through the 4 pillars of a healthy person: physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental. Because the utmost goal is for me to help you and everybody in the group to be the best version of themselves, a category of one. My whole life, I spent all this time competing against people, whether that be in football, dirt biking, and it was comparison. And it was a place that I felt like I was less than because I'm not them. And what I did is I diminished my own light. Therefore, everyone lost because I wasn't able to give the best version of me, and I wasn't able to receive the best version of them. And it wasn't that people weren't there to help me. It's just that I wasn't there to receive it. And so that was one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn. And so within Neuromastery, I want to be able to help people find that category of one, where it's 1 to 0. They're not competing against anybody because we're creating a whole entire category in and of itself. Because where you're able to bring the best version to this world is when you become the highest and best version of yourself, which comes from the things that the world cannot give you. It's not external validation. It's not a car. It's not your clothes. It's you. It's Brock. And that's what I found, is that as I focused on myself and was able to build Brock into the highest and best version of me, I was able to give so much more to the guys in my program. I could give to them when they couldn't give to themselves. And so what I did is I created a whole nother category that doesn't necessarily exist yet. And so what we're doing is we're trying to marry the worlds of wellness and fitness to where they become one, because that's where you have the freedom and availability to make any choice that you want to become whoever it is that you want to. We're starting a movement. It's called the Category of One movement. I want to marry the worlds of wellness and fitness and show that anybody can adopt these principles. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. It doesn't take away from your family, and it doesn't take away from yourself. It's just focused and intentional effort that you can find alignment with yourself and with the environment around you. Because as you build yourself into that category of one, you also start to watch your environment naturally change around you. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to change an entire generation where wellness becomes a necessity. And same thing with fitness. And the way that we're going to do that is by helping over 1,000 people adopt these principles that will literally change your brain and your body to work for you rather than against you. Life does not have to be a burden. It can be something enjoyed and completely enveloped inside your soul. And so it's something that I want to help preach, so that way people can experience life to the fullest, whether that be happiness, excitement, anger, sadness, whatever it is that you're experiencing, to be able to truly absorb the experience and learn from it and grow from it to where you can be that version of yourself. If I could go back in time to talk to my younger self, I would say, Brock, you are whole as you are. There was nothing you ever needed to change in the first place. You are enough. You are capable. You are strong. Anything is possible for you.
Looking back on your journey, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of my family. Because a part of the story that people don't hear is what happens behind the scenes with Kelsey, with Summit. I don't take on these challenges for myself. I see myself as a hunter back in the old days. They go out, they get the kill, they bring it back to their family, and they come back with stories to tell. I hope that with every challenge that I go out on, I come back with stories to tell that I can bring to my family. And, a lot of people don't see what happens behind the scenes. Like with Kelsey, when we first got married, it was really hard. We struggled a lot. She struggled with mental health from PTSD, and she had to fight a very dark battle. And I wasn't always the best to her during that time, and I wasn't always as understanding as I could have been. And in one way or shape or form, she's still fighting that battle. And figuring out how to be there for one another and to really let go of myself in the service of another person was one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn. But when I brought her the most value and I truly understand what we were doing was when I was able to really figure out who I was and what I was struggling with and my own darkness. Because the more familiar that I got with my own darkness, the better I could sit with her and hers. The tallest towers cast the greatest shadows. The trees that touch heaven also have the roots that touch hell. You cannot go to heaven unless you're also willing to go to hell, because both of those experiences are what help give you the understanding of how to learn, of how to grow, and how to develop yourself. And if you truly want to understand another person, that's how you get there. And honestly, what I'm most proud of is that relationship that her and I have been able to create, and the parents that we've been able to come to be with Summit, and how well we support one another, and how well we are there, ride or die, no matter how deep or how dark it gets. We just know that the other person is there, and that's something that no one could ever take away. In the beginning of our marriage, it was really tough. I honestly didn't know anything about the brain. You know, a lot of people, you watch my content on YouTube, and a lot of it's fitness, right? I'm out there running miles. I didn't do that always. Honestly, it's fairly new. In the last 2 years, I've ran 200-mile races, an Ironman, and a sub-248 marathon, and a 105 High Rocks. But that's only the last 2 years. I've been married for 4. And so when we first started this journey, I didn't know how to cope with it. I was very lost, and I knew I loved her, and I knew I wanted to be with her forever, but I didn't know my place. And that was a hard place. I felt lonely again, and a lot of those feelings started to come up, and I didn't know how to cope in the beginning. But one thing that I did learn was I had to aggressively make a decision of who I was going to be. Was I going to be a strength and a foundational pillar for her? Or was I going to be someone who made it worse? Was I going to add to the trauma, to the PTSD, or was I going to be a strength and a pillar for her? And that part of our life was hard. But one thing that I did, that I had to make a decision that it was her and only her, and it was going to be her forever. Just like on a 100-mile race, there's always a moment where you get hit in the face and you don't know what to do. And when you get hit in the face, you have 2 choices. Am I going to climb this mountain, or am I going to back off and go home? And when I got hit in the face at the beginning of our marriage, I decided that I was in, no matter what. And so what I did was I aggressively wanted to learn everything that I could about PTSD, about trauma, about Kelsey. I wanted to understand her. I wanted to understand what she was going through. I wanted to feel the pain myself. And so I did everything I could to get myself to the point. I read books. I studied. I was listening. I interviewed people. I went and got myself into this industry. And honestly, that's a lot of what formed Neuromastery, was learning from her, with her, to help her. Because that's the only thing I knew how to do. And then when times got lonely for myself, I ran. And I ran. And I ran a lot. And that's not saying that I was perfect all along the way, because I definitely did not always get it right. And sometimes the knowledge actually became a distraction. But I did do everything I could to be able to learn and to understand her, so that way I could give her and be the best support system for her. And in that, that's what's helped grow a lot of what I know and do today with our group. But I think that's the greatest lesson that I've learned, is to truly sit with someone in that darkness is the greatest power, and to see them as they are, and not try to get them to be what you want them to be, or what's right in this society, or what culture tells us is deemable as good. You eliminate the labels and just let them be, and simply sit with them and be a place of strength and power when they need some stability. Be the leader that she needs and step up when she needs it, so that way she has a place of strength that is a firm foundation when she can't be there for herself. That was the greatest thing that I was able to offer. You know, my story here, I hope it was relatable. I hope it's something that you can see yourself in and the people around you in, because it's where the strength is. We all have our darkness. We all have points in our life that we try to hide from. And I hope you give yourself permission to stop playing just to not lose, but absolutely win. Because when I gave myself that permission to win, I was able to do all these challenges within a short amount of time, because I finally invested in myself and in my family, and I was able to give to them what I wasn't able to give before. There's a power that comes from those moments. And so I hope you give yourself that opportunity to win. Give yourself permission to win, to go after what you want. Stop putting limitation on what you think is possible for you. Because seriously, if anyone's an example of that, it's me. Like, I wasn't good at almost anything I did. I was the king of average in almost every way of the word. But as I started to just invest in myself and really give myself that shot that just said, what if it could work out? All of a sudden, things started to work out. And not even just for me, but I've able to take these principles and give them to men and watch them do the same. That's where the powers come from, is because now it started this ripple effect that you can see it in everybody else as they develop themselves. The strength that I've learned from Kelsey has now given me a strength that I can give to guys who are struggling in a similar way, who are struggling with their own darkness, their own efforts on the trails. When they're out there building their business, there's some dark times that are lonely, that are hard, that you feel like, what's the point? Why would I do this? Right? Like, those questions all come up. And the real reason is there's only one reason why, is because what if it grows me? What if I develop? What if I become somebody whole? And when you do that, then you have this alignment that the universe better watch out, because things start to fall into place very quickly. And it's an amazing experience. Well, guys, this is my story in a nutshell, and there is a lot more to it, but I wanted to just let you guys in to where I come from, what we're preaching, what our mission is, so that way you guys can come be a part of it as well. Because there's going to be so many more challenges, but it's not about the miles. And it's not about me being the hero of the story. It's so that way you can see in yourself just what's possible. And so that way you can climb those mountains yourself. You know, I heard this quote the other day that says, it's just another night on the side of Everest, a mountain you chose to climb. And I think right now we all have these mountains we chose to climb. But I hope you can spend that night there and stay in it long enough to where you get to see the top. So, like and subscribe if you saw some value here, because I do think that as we go along this journey, you know, the sky's the limit. So, and we'll see you there. Hope you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.